My husband loves sweet potato fries, but it's not always convenient to start with my raw sweet potato and have to get it all set up that night. So to make it a little bit easier on myself and preserve all of my sweet potatoes, I actually cut them into fries and freeze them in the freezer. So all I need to do is bring them out and fry them up. I begin by peeling my sweet potatoes. If there's any bad spots on them, I make sure that I take that off as well. Now it's kind of interesting, when I was a kid, we actually called these yams. So I thought it was weird when I started getting sweet potato fries when I was older, and they look like a yam. But come to find out, there's actually different varieties, and this is kind of colloquially called a yam, but actually a sweet potato. There's also sweet potatoes that are purple fleshed and white fleshed. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the orange ones. A true yam actually has a white flesh and a very bark-like outside, and it tends to be more rounded on the ends. With these sweet potatoes, they're usually pretty tapered to the end. While I'm peeling my sweet potatoes, I'll get some water boiling on the stove. You can do this with a knife, or if you're lucky like I am to have a strong husband who loves sweet potato fries, you can get him to send it through the French fry maker for you. Now I'll blanch these for 5 minutes in my boiling water. And what this does is it stops it from becoming too starchy when it goes in the freezer. And then I'll pull them out using my wire skimmer. I allow it to drain as much of the water as I can, and then I put it into ice cold water, and I want to leave it in the ice cold water for anywhere from 2 to 3 minutes because I want to stop it from heating the center. I don't want it to continue to cook after I've pulled it out of the water. So then I drain my fries and I place them on a towel. Then I place a towel over the top and I just kind of blot down on it, just trying to get as much of the moisture out as I can. Then I'll place a silicone mat in the bottom of a baking sheet. This just makes it easier to get it up later. And I'll place a single layer worth of fries on my sheet. If it's too wet, they'll end up sticking to each other, and that's why I try and dry them off. So I just kind of move them around on my tray to make sure that there's none on top of each other. I really do want that single layer because it makes it easier to separate it. And I'll place this in the freezer for 4 to 6 hours. Before I bag up my frozen sweet potatoes, I need to label my bag. Once you get all of the fries inside the bag, it creates condensation on the outside, and so then it's very hard to write on even with a Sharpie. And then what I've found is best is just to take the bag and kind of turn the top of it inside out so that it has a little collar there. And then that tends to hold the bag open for me so that I can put the fries on the inside of it. Now you'll see where this mat is so beneficial. I can just kind of lift up on it and it breaks all the connections in between those fries because it was still just a tiny bit wet. That makes it so that they're separate so that I don't get just a huge chunk of sweet potatoes when I go to cook them up. I try to get them in the bag pretty quickly because I don't want them to start to melt. Otherwise they'll stick together when they refreeze. I did do one tray without a silicone mat so that you could see the difference. In this case, there's nothing for me to lift up on, and so I would just use this to break the seal, and that works too. And then I would break up the chunks. And then I remove as much of the air out as I can, and I'll lay it flat so that it lays nicely in my freezer. And these are all ready to go. I can store them in my freezer for up to a year with them still being good, and then take them out and deep fry them and season them whenever I am ready.